Pre-seed funding doesn't really exist anymore. Unless you're crazy deep tech, to go out and tell somebody, I'll figure out sales and marketing and getting clients after I build this with your money, nobody wants to hear that anymore. So it's how do you build something for very little money, prove out an idea, and prove data to then go get that money.
Welcome to another episode of the Business 101 podcast. I am your host, Ayo Oye. And today I'm speaking to Rob Matzkin. Rob had a very interesting background. Diagnosed with dyslexia as a child, Rob went on to become a serial entrepreneur and founder of 16 companies with two successful exits. Today, Rob is CEO of the Rob Matzkin Group, the Bond Summit, and also managing partner at Singularity Ventures, where he is currently raising a $50 million asset under management. He has 20 plus years experience in B2B SaaS and the general AI industry and advises other founders and CEOs on topics relating to scaling, fundraising, and building effective corporate cultures. He also hosts the Bond Summit Leadership Retreat, which we're going to get into more as we go on in the podcast. We'll be chatting about his journey in the tech industry and some of his ideas for building real leadership, raising capital at the executive level, and building alignment inside companies before chasing outside wins. Welcome to the podcast, Rob. Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for a lovely introduction. Excited to jump into
Yeah,
it today.
definitely. So, Rob, let's start from your journey, right?
hmm
From being a child diagnosed with dyslexia, now you've started 16 companies, sold two, and you currently have like what 4 or 5 companies you're actively involved in. Let's talk about that journey. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
Me having 5 different companies just proves that I'm ADD.
Yeah.
So, growing up, I was an extremely shy kid. I didn't really have a lot of self-esteem because I couldn't read. And I didn't really get a handle of reading until I was really in 4th and 5th grade when I went to a special school specifically for dyslexia. It definitely shaped me. I remember all I wanted to be was just normal and just being able to function like everybody else. Going through that, there's a lot of stats on dyslexia. About 15, they say 10 to 15% of the globe is actually dyslexic. I think that's more of a functionality from where we're hardwired to learn by doing and learn by examples and learn through apprenticeships, not necessarily learn through endeavor that society has taken on the last 200 years. So I'm really passionate about education and educating in the way people need to be educated, not the way we want to necessarily teach them because it's convenient for us. But in any case, yeah, so growing up, it definitely affected me. I look at it as now as my superpower and my superpower for entrepreneurship because I function in the world differently. I have to, where I could read just fine. I read just well, but because I was dyslexic, I consumed my learning through auditory. I showed up to every lecture in college and I did great because I listened to exactly what the professor said. I never really opened the textbook though, and I did just fine, right? But I could listen to a book on tape at 3.x, an audible, and my reading comprehension goes up with the faster it goes because I don't get distracted and I don't daydream. So that really shaped me. And but I really learned a lot of character. I was always a standout athlete and I was a college wrestler. So a lot of my work ethic and discipline and tenacity comes from that. So yeah, that's just the world I grew up in. My father was also an entrepreneur and ran our family business. So it was something that I grew up with entrepreneurship at the dinner table from a very young age, discussing business and discussing what he was dealing with and the decisions he made. Yeah, so that was really my childhood.
What was that journey like?
Yeah, so my first real successful startup, I've done a bunch of other small companies. The first entrepreneurship, or what I call my lemonade stand moment, was in college when a golf tournament was around the block, and I was able to create a parking lot out of my parents' yard, and was able to make I think 20 grand in a weekend, which was really great. So that was always fun. And then moving. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Were you gonna say something? Yeah. But the first real company, the first real successful startup I had was something called Booze Carriage. And I invented alcohol delivery in the United States in 2010. And it actually came from, I was working with my father, working with my uncle, and it was a very tough year. Working in a family business is nothing I wish upon anybody. It's really tough. And so I quit. I'll spare the drama and I'll spare the story, but I quit on a moment's notice. And I was kind of left a little flat footed. When I really stopped and reflected after 2 months, I go, what do I want to do? I really want to be an entrepreneur again. And a family friend asked me two really cool questions. He goes, what business models do you like? And, what business models do you like? And what business verticals do you love? And I go, well, I really love Visa, MasterCard. They get 1% of everything, or 2% of everything. I can't do that. Although I've had a few crypto ideas that I maybe could over the years. And then I go, I really, at the time, it was like Seamless Web or Grubhub or Uber Eats at the time in 2010. They get 15, 20% of everything. And I go, well, they've done that. And then what verticals do I like? Well, I really like to drink at the time. I was 27 years old. And I go, okay, booze delivered. I'll bring that together. And Booze Carriage was born. And, it was born in a way that I was like, well, how do I deliver this? What's the logistics? What's the insurance? How do I actually build a sell business about that? And I was able to do it and do it in a way that was the first one to figure out how to do that legally in the US. So that was pretty cool.
Interesting. Can you talk a bit about that journey? Like when you said you figured it out, what did that look like? 2010, 15 years ago, definitely, I mean, technology wasn't exactly what it is today. What did that look like from a legal standpoint as a 20-year-old trying to
Yeah.
distribute
So,
alcohol?
so it wasn't necessarily, up until 2 years ago, I don't think the technology landscape necessarily changed. The e-commerce platforms were more mature, but coding was still coding was still coding. Now I think we're in the midst of that transition. But so I asked myself a bunch of questions, and from the very beginning, and this is how I build any business. It's how do you not that I believe in writing business plans, but business plans is a really healthy exercise. And I could write one in about 5 to 10 minutes on the back of an envelope these days. But it's how do you look at all the aspects of your business and all the challenges that you face, not just the sexy bits, but the challenges that you face to really properly build out that business. So you could go in with your eyes wide open saying, oh, it's going to be easy for this. Let me prove that. And it's going to be hard here. So for alcohol delivery, it's like, well, how do I make it legal? How do I actually have business insurance? How do I actually logistically do this? How do I get a delivery there in a half an hour, right? In Manhattan traffic? How do I make sure that I'm not going to get arrested or have problems with the law?
Exactly.
How do I make sure I'm investable? How do I get my first clients? How do I get
Yeah.
my first partners, right? So I'm just starting to ask all these hard questions and I'm starting to come up with answers. And when I had all the answers, I was like, okay, let's go for it. And some of them are harder than others. And the ones that like insurance, I couldn't get insurance. And I knew, I mean, we're going to be doing deliveries with alcohol. I needed some sort of liability insurance. But by going through that process, it actually guided me to how to do it legally because I couldn't actually sell alcohol. So I never sold a bottle of alcohol in my life. So I was a marketing and technology company. So by finding insurance, it forced me to do that. So that was kind of the gold right there. So sometimes the greatest hardships are actually is where the gold is, where it's easy and there's not going to be real innovation there.
Yeah.
So that was that was Booze Carriage in a nutshell in the very very early days.
Interesting. And this was 2010, so a year after Uber started. Were you delivering with drivers like Uber? So I assume this was like a marketplace thing where you're essentially like a middleman. People want to buy alcohol, people want to sell alcohol. You connect both people, you charge a linkage fee or like a middleman fee, something like that, right? How were you getting these two people together? How was that delivery happening? And was this one of the companies that you exited?
Yes, it was. Yeah, Booze Carriage is I was able to be acquired. So there's a few hypotheses. One back then was I thought there was a lot of elasticity demand in the sense that, I didn't think at the time I started TaskRabbit, started Instacart, Uber, Lyft, Uber and Lyft were just doing rides at that time. But Instacart was charging 20% to the consumer on top of everything and or maybe even 30%. I didn't think people wanted that. So I really was able to do everything where I was able to make my margins not for my customers or not mark a bottle of alcohol up. I don't know if ultimately I think I was actually proven wrong in that Uber Eats now and anybody that you order delivery from, Uber Eats is very problematic in the sense that you pay a fortune more than retail, right? To do that. So we were very, how do we make sure that our customers just get it quickly and for the exact same price so we could produce the best product possible? So what we did was very simple. I went to every liquor store in New York City. I took my tablet out and sold them a screenshot and a dream, and 10 believed in me, and we were up and running. And they processed the orders, they processed the transactions, they delivered everything. And I kind of did the marketing and the technology platform that hosted everything.
Interesting. So what you were supplying was the customers. You were
Exactly.
bringing customers and charging like a referral fee.
Essentially, the invoicing was a little different, but yeah. But essentially, what they were concerned about, I was bringing in more business, easy and simply.
Interesting. And are you able to share how you exited and who did you exit to? Does the company still exist today? How did they integrate it?
Yeah, so it was really an interesting journey. One, exits are never as smooth as one thinks. But we sold to another competitor in this space within 3.5 years, called Minibar. They integrated a lot of our tech and innovations as well as a lot of our client lists. And they were able to build that and grow and expand with that to multiple cities and across the board with that.
That's interesting. And okay, so you've now exited the company and made some money, a lot of money. How did you go from that to the next company that you then exited from? What was
Yes.
that
I
company?
mean, so it's funny. I haven't talked about this journey too much in a while. I was relaxing in New York City at the time for about 7 or 8 months, and one of my friends slash mentors, I got on a phone call with him, and he goes, "So you're 30 now, and you're living in New York City. You're not working. You're relaxing." I go, "Yeah, I earned it." He goes, "Yeah, you did." And he's like, "Why aren't you traveling?" I go, "Traveling. I live the best life possible. I live in New York. Else could I be? It's summer. It's perfect." And he goes, "When's the next opportunity you're going to get to just travel the world?" I go, "Good question." So called a friend about to give her a job opportunity that I thought she was perfect for. Turns out this was like the next day. Turns out she was in Spain with her and she met a cute boy and she was staying there and said that she wanted to get out of the Schengen zone. I didn't know what the Schengen was, but I was like, whatever that means, I'll meet you in Croatia. So a week later,
Mm.
I'm on a plane in Croatia via Barcelona, hanging out with a friend, and then a week later she missed her boyfriend, went back to him, and then I ended up in Tel Aviv, Israel for 4 days, and then 4 years later I went home. So I very randomly, serendipitously ended up in Tel Aviv, meeting a friend, a future business partner, and 2 weeks after meeting him, ended up on an adventure with him building out a company called MyQuest together, which was in the education technology, which is an edtech platform, and also in the enterprise knowledge management space. So we had two different divisions of that organization.
Interesting. What did MyQuest do?
So basically, the long story short of it was if you wanted to build an online course, we were an online course provider. But what we did is our niche wasn't for consumers, it was for business trainers and coaches. So we sold to people going into enterprises, and then we eventually sold into enterprises themselves doing training and development.
So this is Udemy, ETS for trainers?
Yeah,
Well,
you could think like Udemy or Teachable or Kajabi, but they're mainly B2C or were back in the day B2C focused. We were very much B2B focused.
Between interesting. You know, I find it very interesting when people say things like, I went to visit a country and ended up staying 4 years. I'm like, how does that even happen? So you lived in Tel Aviv for 4 years,
Yep.
started MyQuest out of Tel Aviv. Did you sell while you were there or when you moved back to the
So
States?
MyQuest is still going. So they're still going strong. I'm no longer part of that. When I moved back to the States, I got focused on some other projects. So started working on that. But they're still going strong and still building and growing. So
And okay. So how did you exit?
so MyQuest, I didn't exit. So I moved on from MyQuest, right? Yeah. There's a whole story in there in itself, but they're still going really strong, and I'm really proud of the work that they're doing over there.
Interesting. I have a professor in business school. His name is Mark Stern. And they started this very non-sexy business, which was essentially what they used to do was to handle kind of the paperwork for people when they die. So when people die, you need to figure out how to close their social media account, close their SSN, all of those documentation or documentation that they have with the government or with private companies that people or scammers could eventually then lease on to try and scam people. And nobody wanted to deal with that. And he started a company at 21 or 22, I remember, doing that, bootstrap all the way. And I believe in 2 years or 3 years, he sold, exited, and he personally made the $148 million. And I'm like, sexy companies are the way to go because nobody's looking at it. Everyone wants to do AI now, and some of the things you're speaking about just makes me think in that direction. Like you probably were ahead of your time, looking at these industries. But let's talk now. I mean, about now you've done 16 companies, right? Is there a common strength, you know, between all 16 companies, or are they very completely different industries?
I would say they're all completely different. But to your point with Max, sexy or unsexy doesn't matter. The market doesn't give a shit. What the market cares about is providing it something of value, right? And if you provide more value than anyone else, you win, right? So what was Max's competitors? Max's competitors were, well, no one, right?
Funeral homes, yeah,
Yeah,
individual
but
funeral
funeral
homes,
homes,
yeah.
but doing it in a very poor way, and
Yeah,
it was a huge friction, right? So
yeah,
whatever the trend is, right? Back, when I was starting Booze Carriage, it was SaaS. When I was doing edtech, well, it was still SaaS and a few other things, right? Or crypto or whatever. There's always going to be the next trend, and now it's obviously
yeah,
AI. The thing that's a double-edged sword with AI, everything's moving so quick. You got to move really, you got to even move faster than that. But if
yeah,
you provide so much value, right, and you are able to now innovate stuff that wasn't in the past, wasn't able to be streamlined or create 10x more value than what the current way of doing things is, and now you
yeah,
can. That's what makes AI really valuable, not the fact that it's, well, really cool and scary and doing all these amazing things, but it's
yeah,
how do you create more efficiencies for people and
yeah.
save
That
people
makes sense.
time? Yeah.
Yeah. And you're saying there's no central theme behind these 16 companies that you started, right? So I'm trying to walk through your thought process, right? You started a company, say you exit or you decide to move on. How do you decide on what next to do? Is it just, oh, you look around, find there's something the
See,
market is looking for, and you
so
try and provide that? Or
So I think there's a small flaw in that question or that logic. You're asking to, I think you're trying to create a story of the way I think, but
okay,
there's the way I think isn't from a thematic. I always teach people go for a North Star and get there as quick as you can in an organization. But I think in life, for me, my journey has been very much more trusting and serendipitous, right? Like when I try and plan or engineer or force a specific outcome in my life, it never looks the way I think it's going to look. Right? Like when I had to the Booze Carriage and ended up not in a million years did I ever think I was going to end up in Tel Aviv of all places. And I started my travel a month earlier, let alone stay there, let alone start another company, let alone any of that. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I was burnt out. I didn't need to work and I didn't want to do it. But then that was an opportunity ended up in my lap and I was really excited about it. So I said yes. Right. And I think it was the exploration, the journey, the saying yes to an opportunity is the theme versus a theme of specific industries. The theme is me being an entrepreneur. The theme is me innovating. The theme is me being structured and taking the risk, right? And the theme is building out tech companies versus building out specific verticals or industries. Can I answer your question a little bit?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense, which is what my question was about, right? I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to say, oh, what industry are you trying to serve? It's just how are you thinking about your companies? Was it I find an opportunity, there's an opportunity I identify, I do something, or is it there's somewhere I'm trying to get to, and along the way, I start these companies that serve subsets of the larger goal that I'm trying to get to. That's
Yeah.
essentially what.
I think the way I think these days when looking at companies, because I've been evaluating quite a few different business ideas recently, and what I'm looking for is where is there an industry that hasn't been disrupted that finally can now with AI, right? I spoke to somebody a few hours ago. They're disrupting the construction world. Why? Because they finally can. Because with AI, it's finally powerful enough to get the logic right of these complex scenarios, right? And it hasn't been disrupted yet. Is there an area like so looking for those places in those industries that haven't been interrupted? I was speaking to somebody in DevOps yesterday. And DevOps, it's a very complex scenario where things are always breaking, right?
Yeah.
So that's just something to think about as well is where are these big problems to solve and how can technology support me with that and finally make that easy where I could see huge
Yeah.
growth, right? So that's really what always looking for and always focused on. And when I find those opportunities, I take them and I run with them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So now let's talk about the some of this company that you're still involved in, the Rob Matzkin's group, on Summit, and Singularity. Speaking a bit, in the direction of what you've spoken about, the ability to be disrupted. How does AI or disruption work in these three companies that you're currently involved in, and what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, so a few things, right? So one is I think we need to get comfortable with change for the next 5 or 10 years because everything's going to keep changing and evolving, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, I think so.
with the companies that I'm involved in right now, AI is more augmented what I'm doing and made my life simpler. Building
Okay.
out content, applying content, writing proposals, all these different things that used to take me a long time to actually build out the content, I'm using AI for. Now, am I vibe coding yet? No, nothing beyond playing with it. Am I building out systems of systems and crazy automations and personalizations yet? I think AI is still another 12 months away from really being perfect without hallucination free, without kind of going off on its own, uh, for, own way with that. So I'm utilizing it. I'm still also, I think with any piece of technology, right? It's about a wave, right? And right now,
Yeah,
I used to surf a lot. I kite surf more these days. But when you're looking for a big set that rolls in, you're looking for usually comes in 7 waves, right? And you're looking for that perfect wave. So you want to catch one of those waves, but not only you
yeah,
catch the wave at the right time,
yeah,
but just because a wave goes by doesn't mean you can catch it. You could paddle all you want and it'll break really far down that way. And I think that's what's happening now. And then, if you're too late for the wave, it'll break on top of you and crush you. Or you could paddle underneath it and then catch the next one. And I think everybody's trying to chase the wave right now, and it's kind of down there. And I think the wave is coming. Our wave is coming, and timing it just right when AI is going to hit. And it's already hitting, don't get me wrong. But I think everything's in flux right now. And paying
yeah,
attention to be ready to pounce and knowing
yeah,
you have capital and innovation on the side and bandwidth to do that. I think
yeah,
that's where AI is going. And that's where we need to be focused with AI right now to enable us to see what's coming next. There was a huge wave of everybody investing in AI companies 18 months ago or so. And when
yeah,
ChatGPT first made that first splash, and if you're AI, you could get invested in, and everybody became an AI company. Now, you need to be AI enabled to get investment right now, but to say that you're an AI company, and to have a proprietary LLM or whatever, whatever that's going to be for you, I don't know if that you're going to catch that wave. But
uh,
again, to use the core principles of startups for the last 25 years or 30 years to really disrupt something and create real innovation there and using the best technology that we have at our disposal to move quick, to
yeah.
move lean, to get customers on board, to raise money. That's the way I'm thinking right now.
Interesting. And you haven't answered my question about what you particularly do at these companies. So, what do you do at, say, Singularity, for example?
You're,
And
you're,
what are
you
you trying to achieve?
yeah. So what at Singularity, how am I using AI?
Well, there's that, but also, what does Singularity do?
Yeah, so Singularity Ventures, we're a VC fund that's focused on deep tech in quantum space, AI, and cyber. I'm currently raising that fund to deploy in government technologies, where we'd write $1 million checks for companies that haven't gotten their first government contract yet. So I'm currently fundraising for that right now. So I use AI in a few ways, but it's more how does it empower my day-to-day operations versus the actual fund. right? And then over at Bond Summit, I don't really use it too much at all, maybe for some marketing
Okay.
purposes, but we're an in-person retreat company empowering purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So it's a very much legacy hands-on business. And then at my consulting firm, Rob Matzkin Group, it empowers me to help me create more content and very normal ways of using it. I haven't automated systems. I don't have thousands of leads every day that I need to automate or anything like that. So, but numerous companies of mine that are AI companies, they're leveraging it. Numerous companies that I consult for, we're leveraging it in many different ways and many different use cases.
Interesting. So let's talk now about fundraising, right? You're currently trying to raise $50 million for Singularity. What's that journey like?
Well, if you ever thought fundraising for a startup was difficult, raising money for a fund is a whole nother level. So I talk about a few things, right? But fundraising for funds, it's who I'm speaking to, right? It's some of the most wealthy families in America and the globe. It's sovereign wealth funds, right? It's pension funds. It's all these different organizations that want high returns, that want exposure to what we do. So what's that like is it's very simple. It's building relationships and making sure they like, know, and trust me. Right. And really believe in the thesis that I'm doing, which is being proven right every day. This administration and the global change, like what just happened in Europe with them spending 5% on defense. So
Yeah.
there's definitely that happening.
Yeah. And you currently advise teams on crypto strategy, right? What kind of mistakes have you seen founders make when trying to get ready for, to raise money, to pitch, things like that?
So all my clients everybody's always fundraising, right? um,
Yeah.
so I think I have a few philosophies on fundraising that I always love to share. One is, what is a specific round, right? Because there is no true definition, but I like saying this. There's friends and family, there's pre-seed, seed, and series A. And there's some stuff in between, but it's more of a mindset. A friends and family investor, why are they going to give you money? They're going to give you money because they know you and they trust you. That's it.
Yep.
It has
Gotcha.
nothing to do with the idea, right? Pre-seed investor is going to give you money. Why? Well, they're going to give you money because they believe in your idea and they believe in you, with no proof. A seed investor is going to give you money because they believe in something that they
Okay.
see in
Yeah.
your data, right? And a Series A is going to invest you when you have true product market fit. Now, I say that
Yeah.
not to give a long-winded answer, but what I want to articulate is pre-seed funding doesn't really exist anymore. There's some examples in San Francisco, but unless you're crazy deep tech, it doesn't really exist. People want to invest in seed. After Silicon Valley Bank collapse, everybody wants to invest in seed investment, right? So you need to
Yeah.
have some sort of proof point. So what do I believe? What do I teach people in investing right now and getting investment is go out and prove your idea works. Show with a specific KPI that's tangible results that this idea has legs. You know how to get clients, you know how to get money, you know how to this, whatever it is, it's applicable for you. But to go out and tell somebody, I'll figure out sales and marketing and getting clients after I build this with your money, nobody wants to hear that anymore. So it's, how do you
Yeah.
build something for very little money, prove out an idea and prove data to then go get that money? And how do you do that? That's kind of a lot of what I work with my clients on, to really make sure that we can do that effectively, because it's really hard building a company with no money and it's a chicken and an egg.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of to your point, right? Every investor wants to get in around the seed stage because it makes sense, right? The risk is kind of optimal. The business is young enough that if you go in at that point, there's a lot of potential for growth. And your risk is kind of de-risked because your investment is kind of de-risked because, there's now some product market fit and this establishment or this idea has been proven. A company or a business needs to raise money in some of the stages we spoke about earlier, the angel investment, pre-seed, and all of that to get to this stage funding. And how is it people navigate those earlier stages before getting to the seed round? Obviously, those are the stages in which most businesses die off, right? How obviously founders navigate those earlier stages.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten a lot tougher and it's gotten a lot easier, right? Where now it's like, well, in the last 3 to 6 months, you could start vibe coding a platform and it'll be buggy as heck, but you could go build a prototype for virtually no money and you just stick yourself in a room for a week or 2 weeks, whatever
Yeah.
it takes, build out this MVP on your own, vibe coding it, and go prove that people want this. And if you could prove that people want this, and so what if your beta sucks and it's glitchy and people are still paying you and still paying you good money? They're complaining like hell, but they're paying you
But
good
they still
money
pay.
for it, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, and you figured out how to get people get there, solve this problem for them, they'll pay for it. Well, now you've proven that the business has some sort of validation. Not that you're like doing great, but it has validation. You're no longer in a pre-stage state. You've proven
Yeah.
your sales, you're proven your marketing, you're proven your product. And now it's like, hey, we're doing well. We can't take this beyond what it is now. We need support. We're raising 500,000. We're raising 4 million. We're raising this money to go build this right with the right team and to actually increase everything we're doing. And that's a story, especially when it has a big total addressable market, a big TAM, an easy way of acquiring clients or
Yeah.
a
Low customer
consistent way of acquiring
acquisition
clients.
fee.
Now all of a sudden an investor likes that story and that's what they want to invest in because they understand and see how you'll be successful.
Yeah. And just generally, what have you, I mean, I think you're in the prime position to answer this question because you're currently trying to raise more money. What is the, let's say, PVC market looking like right now? I mean, 2020, everyone was raising money, billions, hundreds of millions. It kind of died down between 2022 and 2024. It was very difficult to raise money in the market. What do you think is happening right now?
Well, I could give you the short answer and the long answer, right? So the short answer is there's a lot of funds. Well, how do I want to answer this? So there's a few things happening in the market, right? There's a difference between a VC market and an angel, obviously, right? But they're not necessarily in lockstep. But I'm going to answer a slightly different question. And then I'll get to this one. One is there's a $1 billion valuation mindset that I think every startup needs, where it's
Yeah.
why do you need to be worth $1 billion? You need to be worth $1 billion for this reason. If I'm going to give you $25,000, I need to know that somebody else is going to, for friends and family, I need to know that you're going to get a seed round of funding. I need to know that you're going to get $250,000 or $2.5 million because I know my $25,000 isn't going to get you anywhere, right? So if I'm an
Yeah.
angel investing in you, so if I'm investing in your friends and family round and I'm smart, I need to know that you're going to get your seed round. If I'm investing in your seed round, I need to know you're going to get your A round, right? So if I'm investing in your A round, I need to know you're going to get your B round. If I'm investing in your B round, I need to know you need to get your C round. Your C round is probably going to be, your B or C is going to probably be around $1 billion valuation.
Yeah. That's about it. Yeah.
Right? So what's happening is right now, there is no liquidity. The C round can't exit. There's been, I think, 130 startups that are over $1 billion that haven't gone IPO yet
IPO.
because the IPO market is frozen. So if we go from the
Yeah.
backwards, and what's really happened, I think, is there's not necessarily new money coming into the startup ecosystem. Everybody's just recycling their money and it's been growing. So the market's been growing. But now
Yeah.
the top investments can't get their money out because they haven't gone IPO. So the pension funds, which invest in the VC funds, also they need to get rid of because they've also bought after the Series C, but they need them to go
Yeah.
IPO. So they don't have liquidity, but they have to rebalance. So they're selling at a discount. So the top end people that invest in VCs are lacking liquidity. So now what's happening is, the top VCs, the top 10 VCs, this doesn't apply to the top 20, but the other hundreds or thousands this applies to, where they need the liquidity to be loose to get an investment for them to go invest. So now from a VC perspective, a lot of them invested in 2020, 2021. The valuations are really high. They've since decreased.
Yeah.
They're underwater. They don't necessarily have the liquidity. They haven't raised more funds. So there's a lot less liquidity at the top for a few of those reasons. Angel investors have liquidity, but they've always looked at this as 20 to 50% returns. There's plenty of places to now. 5 years ago, it was hard to get 10 to 20% returns consistently. Now it's
Yeah.
not hard. So you're competing. So from an angel perspective, you're competing with other people. So you got to be more, you're competing with other dollars, right? And there's more risk because it's harder to get more money in later stages, and angel investors
Yeah.
know that. So that's kind of the why I see the market right now
Yeah.
of what's happening. It's still I would say it's somewhere in between. Every 3 months, the market's changing and whether it's easy or hard. Like we're coming in a prime season and everything was perfect and everything was aligned for like March and April to be like
Yeah.
amazing. And then the tariffs hit and everybody like was like chicken little.
Heck,
So
yeah.
everybody panicked. So hopefully it looks like, and remember, investing is very seasonal, where we have September through December, we could get investment, and then we have really mid-January through May to get investment. But in the summertime and over Christmas, everything shuts down. So we really have two main
Yeah.
seasons, and the next season is coming up quickly. So we'll see. Hopefully September and mid-September and October are really strong. Right, and the
Yeah.
economy's going well, and Trump's not scaring everybody as much anymore.
Interesting. Those were good insights. And kind of to your point about the IPO, I actually wrote a paper on that in 2023, or was it 2024, about IPO timing and what's happening in the market. And I think a lot of things that you said, I actually do agree with them. But, kind of as we begin to wind down the conversation now, right? What are you looking to do next? So I know you're raising, at least trying to raise $50 million for Singularity Ventures. What else are you looking to do in your personal entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that lights me up day in day out is obviously raised for the fun, but that really lights me up is making a difference for entrepreneurs and helping them build and start their companies, right? I think there's so much in people's way when it goes to taking the leap and quitting their corporate job to start a company, and I think I've created a lot of systems of how to do that and have the confidence to take that leap, and then how do you get to your first 20K MRR? How do you get to your first 100? How do you get to your first 100K raised? How do you get to your first
Yeah,
million raised? And really helping people with that is really what I'm focused on. And keeping my eyes wide open on what technology is coming and what it's doing, and also what opportunities are going to arise from that and what company am I going to start next. So
yeah.
that's really where I'm focused.
Sounds exciting. Sounds exciting. And one final question, right? Kind of around corporate culture. You've been around a lot of companies in different industries, started some, exited some, and all of that. How does one, go through this process of building a company or building multiple companies, without losing that people touch, right? What advice do you have? What have you seen work in terms of building corporate culture, especially for serial entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, people are everything, right? Companies don't buy from us, people do. Employees don't work for us, they work with us. And, especially the way technology is rolling is I'm developing a new thesis that's formulating in my mind the last month or so. But management, char, it's been all invented from the like literally, Ford at like an industrial line of manufacturing, right? So that's where it's like you work X amount of hours, you produce Y amount of product, and that's what we're paying you for. But now everybody wants to work remote,
Yeah,
with AI, I have so many people that have these corporate jobs that just automated their whole job and work 1 hour a week or one
yeah,
hour a day. And it's like, okay, that's great. They're going to figure it out at some point and fire you for fraud, and which is fine, I guess, if that's your choice. But we need to incentivize people to produce results, to achieve outcomes. I don't work a specific amount of hours a day. I achieve a specific amount of results in a day. That's my goal, and really creating leadership and ecosystems and teams that are going to achieve goals together. I think that's where the future of leadership is. That's where the future of
yeah.
management is. Now, have we figured that out completely? Have I figured that out completely? No. But if we strive to that and stop counting people's hours and start counting what they could do for the difference they can make for us, that's what's going to be needed in a world that the busy work and the labor is going to be done by an algorithm. We need their
That makes
leadership. We need
sense.
their decisiveness. We need their innovation
Yeah,
and creativity.
yeah, yeah. I was talking to someone 2 days ago, and they kind of spoke in the same direction about how you need to align incentives for your employees or partners. You need to make sure that one, they feel appreciated as part of your team, but two, you're incentivizing them in a way that encourages them to achieve the goal that you care about, which is, some of the things that you've spoken about. That was supposed to be my last question, but I just remembered that you run a brokerage company that has like $28 billion in in assets. Did you speak about that?
Basically, one of the things that I'm really well known, I really adopted this philosophy, and I'll tell you how I got there. I
Okay.
adopted this philosophy that I think everybody should is your net worth is your network. So I really focused on my network. I thought I had a pretty weak network. Now I'm pretty well known globally as being very well connected. So long story short, a friend asked me years ago if I wanted to help him sell some artwork. I go, absolutely not. I don't have any passion for art or know anything about it. Turns out it was a $5 billion collection. We
Mhm.
started, turns out 2 months later, somebody actually, I happened to mention it to somebody. They happened to express some interest in it. That collection didn't have the right paperwork that we needed. Turns out we had another collection that we knew about that was worth $8 billion. So then we started moving that, and then that led to one thing led to another, where we now work on transactions in oil, gas, gold, Bitcoin, food commodities, and all sorts of different commodities that we seek to, there's also sports teams, and all sorts of franchises and large infrastructure projects that we work on. But really, the whole goal of that organization that I don't speak about too much, because it's really just bringing people together and making deals happen, is people need money and people have huge opportunities. So how do we bring the two of those things together? And it all started with a random phone call from a good friend.
Interesting. Interesting. So this is not something you're like super involved in. It happens ad hoc as the need arises.
So it's something I spend about an hour a day on. The business is more of it's about making deals happen and filtering out the fraudsters of the world and really creating deals with people versus there's all this work to be done with it.
Got it. Got it. Okay, I'm gonna take your final thought now. If someone listened to this episode, what is the one thing you want them to take away?
Well, we didn't speak about this, but I'll say my biggest piece of advice for entrepreneurs is be authentic, be vulnerable, and take the risks.
It's profound. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. You're a no nonsense interviewer and didn't let me skate with any of your questions, and you held me to them. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Thanks so much for your time, and always happy to be of service.
Happy to have chatted with you. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.